yeah, I love the Hangout family. You guys are just simply the best. You guys are the best. People always say, the guest barristers always say, oh, the guests are so engaging. Yes, you guys are so engaging. Oh, Bookie made you cry last week. Oh, I'm sure she didn't mean to. But yes, it was emotional. She was so vulnerable and very, very, very brave. Very, very brave young woman. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yes, so welcome to Hangout Cafe, another Saturday. Okay, because I know we have a lot to cover today, but I'm going to invite the guest barristers to to join us. Yes, and remember, we encourage, we inform, we educate, we cry, we pray. This is a good place to be, and this is the right time to please invite your friends, share the handle. Just invite them before we get started. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Welcome, Sade, Derunke, Tom Ali. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to get them to come in shortly. Let's invite them now. Okay, let's invite our guest. Yep, okay, that's the first. Looking forward to having Lanre join us first. Welcome, sis. Omot Kende, welcome. Faith Builder Collective, welcome. Potential You, welcome, welcome. Waiting for Lanre to. This is the first time I'm doing 3 people at the same time. We've done 2. So I'm just waiting to see. Lanre, I've sent you an invite and it's waiting for you to come on. Let's see. Okay, what's happening with Lanre? Welcome, Ayodele. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Iris Kranker, welcome. Fulana Special, welcome. Oh, thank you. We're happy to have you here too. Okay, Larry, it says you're unable to join. I will try. Okay, let me send it to you again. I'll send it to you. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Sorry, my settings had disabled, my camera and mic, so it took me to settings. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me invite Wale now to come. Let me see if I can do Wale and Ayo at the same time. Ayo Afolabi. Okay. Let's see. Guys, as they come in, show them some love. Yes, yes, yes. Woo! This is nice. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Nice to have you here with us. Welcome, welcome. Hangout family, please show them some love. Show them some love.
Everyone.
Let them feel welcome. I'm waiting to see all the Woo! Super cool, guys. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Can you hear them properly? Let's see. Make sure we can hear everyone. Wale?
Mic check.
Yep.
Mic check 1 2.
1 2 1 2.
Mic check 1 2 and 3.
Great. Okay, so we can hear all of you. Wow. Can you guys see all the love and the heart and the hugs?
Indeed, yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great, great, great. Nice to have you here with us. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. This is going to be a great, great one. And thank you guys again. Thank you, Lanre, Wale, and Ayo. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, folks, before we get started, we've agreed that we probably will. Make sure you have your chargers so you don't, your phones don't die on you. Please make sure your chargers are around you. And even for the
plugged
people
in already.
watching, make sure your chargers are Make sure your chargers are around. Get a drink if you need to. Get your coffee. I've got my coffee, a drink, whatever you want. Just make sure you have that ready with you before we get started. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to please just introduce yourself. I'm sure there are people who don't know you. So can we start? Okay, the flyer clockwise. Lanre, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Lanre. I think I've been here a couple of times before, so I don't know what you want me to say that I haven't said before.
Okay, what do you do?
What do
Tell
I
us what you
do?
do.
I'm a freelance creative, so that's mainly writing and graphic design, editing as well. Married to one wife. Been married for 16 and a half years now. Have a 9-month-old baby. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wale.
Hi, my name is Wale Akinbulumo. I'm married to one wife as well. Um, I've been married for 24 years this June. Um, um, I'm a businessman, various interests, mining, captive power, structured finance. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you're married to one wife too.
Yeah, so I'm married to one, husband to one as well. Afolabi. I've been married for just over 2.5 years. So I'm the baby of the group. I'm coming to learn from my elders here. I work in management consulting, predominantly consulting in financial services space. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So, we had loads of questions were sent in, and so the gentlemen are going to try to tackle some of them. And also, if you've got questions that you'd like them to answer, please put the questions in the comment box, in the question box, not in the comment box, question box. That will be able to pick it up, and we'll try to answer them. So again, we had so many questions across many topics, and guys, I've tried to group them together, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the questions. And I know that you're not experts, but you'll be speaking from individual perspective of all men. So it's from your own experiences. And a lot of the questions that we received were about relationship. And so, of course, you're all married. So hopefully you'll be able to answer them. The other thing was, someone asked me that why are all the men here? Why are all the guest barristers, why are they Yorubas? And I said, that's not true. Lanre Iroche is actually not Yoruba. He's Igbo. It's just that his mom is Yoruba, but his dad is Igbo, so he's not Yoruba. And even though Ayo is Yoruba, but I call him, it's a British man. So they're not all Yorubas like that. And what was the other thing someone asked? Someone asked them, why are they all married? Why didn't we have a single person? And I think the best way to answer that is to say that it's one thing to be in a relationship when you're single and to have all the ideas, but it's only when you get in there that you really know, okay, this marriage thing, it's quite different. And I'm sure the men can testify to that you might have an idea of what marriage will be like when you're still single, but when you get in there, it's totally different.
Really different.
Okay, so that's why we don't have a single person here, but they were once single, so they can answer questions.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so let's get started. We know you've been married 16, 24, and 3. Is it 3?
Well, just over 2.5.
2.5.
Just over 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, actually, because we've had a difficult, year, 13 months now, I think, or 14 months now. How have you guys coped during this lockdown? How have you guys coped? Wale, do you want to answer that?
Cope, so mine's a bit different. I think because I was stuck in Nigeria for an extended period of time.
Okay.
So, but then everybody was stuck at home or stuck in one place or the other.
Yeah.
So I guess, I just sucked it up and dealt with it, I guess. But otherwise, I've been fine. Back to London. My house is it's like a playground. So it's always alive, shall I say? So it's been fine, really.
It's impacted your marriage? Ayo.
So I have to say, for Ruth and I, it's actually been a really, really pleasant period. And I guess 14 months at home. I've literally been into the office once in the last 14 months. So it's literally been everything at home. And yeah, we've had a really, really enjoyable time. I think in many cases we've actually bonded because of that additional time that we have at home. And one of the things I've observed over this long lockdown period is that that lockdown, and I've seen it both ways. It can either accentuate and enhance the relationship, or expose the flaws. And when you're out of lockdown, when you're busy and you're running to and fro, going out and in, you don't have that kind of consistent time together. If you have issues, you can actually escape. You can kind of be out and about doing stuff. But if you're locked down and you're kind of stuck together, you're actually forced to confront and face those issues. And so I think for us, that's actually been a really good thing, that we've actually had time together to, talk through things that we probably wouldn't have had the time and the bandwidth to do. And we've had time to kind of really get to know each other and bond. And we're quite early on in marriage. So for us, it's actually been really, really good. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Lanre?
Yeah,
You
actually,
in lockdown.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'm happy I went first, because the group of people I've probably envied the most in lockdown are those who are in that first 3 years of marriage. Part of me has wished that, I could have been in that season, for all the reasons he said, literally for all the reasons he said. But we've had an enjoyable one, partly because, again, we've had a living distraction which has kind of preoccupied our thoughts. So the time has gone by quickly for us, and in a pleasant way. But even in that, it's actually it's driven home the need to actually be intentional, even at this stage, about all those things he talked about. There's not been that opportunity to hide or run away and escape. You go 2 rooms down, and the situation, the discussion of the conflict is still waiting for you 2 rooms back. So you're forced to contend with those issues, and it's been great in that we've been able to have conversations we probably wouldn't have been able to have. So I've enjoyed it. I actually have enjoyed it,
Okay,
as a married man and as a father. Yeah.
Great. All 3 of you have enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. Thank God. Okay, so the next question. Before you guys got married, how did you know that she was the one? How did you know that she was the one?
I think the person who's most recently had to think about this give the rest of us time to.
Fair enough. I guess for me, the story actually starts back in 2013, when I actually went through a pretty bad breakup. And not a bad breakup because there was all sorts of kind of toxicity involved in the relationship, but a bad breakup because we both realized that we were heading in completely different directions. And at that state, and crazy story, but at that point in time, I just fasted and prayed about being ordained, and I'd actually been told and said, we're nominating you for ordination. And I said, okay, to my girlfriend at the time, I've heard the call, I'm going to do this. And she was like, well, this isn't kind of what I had in mind for us. And so I had a decision to make. And in the end, we decided to both part ways. And it was a really painful breakup because, in every other area we were compatible, apart from in the area that mattered most, where we headed directionally. And so after that, I kind of said, look, I'm not going through this again. I'm never, ever going to be in a situation whereby you've kind of in your mind created this notion of a lifelong relationship with someone only to have it shattered because you haven't done the necessary groundwork to understand that you're both headed in the same direction. And so obviously having taken some time out for 2 years to just not be with anyone or not committed to anyone, when I met the person that I'm with now, I knew that all the things that I had not thought about in that previous relationship, i.e., where are we headed? What are our values? Are we going in the same direction? Those were things that literally from the outset, we had those discussions on. So actually, for me, when I met Ruth, it was a case of literally just a confirmation of that kind of underpinning of what the foundations are for a relationship. That was kind of the initial phase of the relationship. It wasn't kind of like the butterflies in the stomach, and oh yeah, and the romance. I mean, the romance stuff obviously comes naturally with it, and the attraction was there, but it was on the basis of, are we headed in the same direction? What are the fundamentals there? And I guess maybe because I went through that painful experience in 2013, it kind of, focused my mind that, the next relationship I want to be in, no more false starts essentially. And so that really helped inform the journey that I took in the relationship that ended up in marriage for me. That was kind of like the key thing.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Well, let's do it in order. Lanre,
Well, I'll have to give you an abridged version because I think I've given a longer version on this show before. And anyone who wants to hear that, can go back and watch the episode where I said that. But similarly, I liked someone else, went to an event, and it's one of the few times I can actually confidently say, oh, I heard God say, when Bissell was in the choir, I was single. So as a single guy, when you have a group of attractive young women in a gathering, you appreciate visually. You use your eyes to appreciate. As I was appreciating the girls, I got to Bissell and had this otherworldly experience where it was almost like I heard a voice say, "That's the woman you're going to marry," and I thought it was weird, and I kind of chickened out after talking to her. That's the honest truth. But it's funny that a couple of months after, so the guy I went to this event with had said he knew some of the ladies in that choir. And I was trying to, without letting him know what was going on in my head, I was trying to nudge him, do you know her? Do you know her? And he didn't. He actually didn't know her. And it's weird I think that was in May of 2000. And I chickened out of talking to her because he couldn't introduce us. In June 2000, he and her started working in the same company and became best of friends. I met her in, I think, July 2000 at his brother's barbecue event. And that's where I met her, even though, to be honest, we have prior history, we'd been in nursery together and stuff like that. But it's similar to Ayo, in as much as I heard God say that, it was probably in November or December when I got to that realization, in the sense that we were having a conversation, and in that conversation, she told me two particular stories that, for me, it was like, my kids have to have those qualities, and I don't have those qualities to give. Okay. So those two qualities, those stories she told me were like, no, I have to have those, and my kids, more importantly, my kids have to have those, and they're not in me, and I don't have those to give. So I need this woman in my life to help me shape the legacy and the future in that direction, along those lines. So it was also in that purpose-driven sense that, together what we have to offer together is an attractive enough proposition for me. And then, the romantic side, evolved because there was a natural attraction, and then that developed and grew along the way. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, let's see what Wale has to say, because I'm going to ask a question or say something. Okay. Wale, yeah.
All right. Mine's a bit different, but again, I'll give an abridged version. So I've known Tinuke for ever, almost, since we were kids. And to be frank, I had started to chase her from since we were kids. I mean that in all honesty. I think I was about 12 at the time, 11 or 12. And I liked her, and because she was such a personality. And so, we were friends. We became friends as kids. And then I think towards maybe the age of 15, 16, is when I started to try to ask her out. And, she didn't agree, as things were. Then obviously she had blinkers on at the time, couldn't see properly. But consequently, years later, she did agree to give this man a chance, or this boy at the time, because we were quite young. How did I know she was the one? From when we started to go out, there couldn't have been anybody else. There was nothing else I wanted in a partner. So it wasn't. It wasn't. This was God implanting it in my soul, I believe, from when I was a child.
Okay.
Because there just wasn't any. She was always the one. So it was very natural. I didn't even have to. There were no. I wasn't looking for anything else, even though I was never looking for anything. Do you see? I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense.
She was just everything that I wanted, period. And we progressed from there.
Do you know, it's interesting that the three of you said it wasn't that, ladies, well, some ladies, they have the butterflies, they're in love, they're this and that. You guys didn't really have that. It was just the practical things and the values and.
Well, not entirely.
Not that you didn't love them. Yeah,
right.
Do you understand? Not that you didn't love them, but it wasn't, that love is blind kind of thing.
Oh, no.
I mean, can I say for me, it definitely wasn't that. And I think, Ruth won't mind me saying this. There are certain things that I hate sartorially, and one of them is a cardigan. And when I first saw her, she was wearing a cardigan, and yeah, like I didn't like what she was wearing. So for me, definitely, it wasn't a case of, and without trying to sound shallow, I like it when a woman dresses nice. And so for me, you would have thought that, the first time I meet my wife, she would have been all decked up, looking all on point. But yeah, that's not how, I first encountered Ruth. So it's very interesting that you've kind of raised that point, because for me, definitely it wasn't the case that it was kind of like, butterflies, love at first sight. It was actually the conversation that we had that kind of connected deep on a deeper level with me, that made me realize I've encountered something special here. And it was that, as opposed to the looks, which is quite surprising, because I'm a visual guy as well. So yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there as well.
Yeah, and obviously in the interest of full disclosure, I think for me, and as much as I say I was appreciated, you'd think when somebody says, "Oh, he's so," that was my natural reaction. I was like, "What about her? What about her?" Because the next two ladies after her were more, I'd say, to my type, so to speak. So it wasn't as though I saw and then the room emptied and there was nobody, but it's more than that. And I remember the other two ladies, and I look back at me then, I was thinking, I'm just like, thank God for God, because quite frankly, thank God for God. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, let me ask a quick question. What would be your top 3 tips or advice for single male or female who desire to get married? So I know you talked about value. So what are the things that you guys think are important? So not he's got a good job, even it's not even he's a Christian, because you can say you're a Christian and not have Christ in you. So what are the top 3? Just quickly, guys, if you can just say, okay, for me, it'll be this top 3 things.
Character,
very important. Very
character.
important.
And within character, you talk about things like empathy, kindness, meekness. So yeah, character. And that for me is all that I think really solidified a beautiful soul. That was it. Yeah.
And that's for male or female?
I think that should be it.
Yeah.
Because that character is what a person is. And if that character is not right, if it's not solid, in time, the ugliness will show and it will tear things apart.
Fantastic.
I think self-awareness is a big deal. That's the ability. Yeah, because a lot of people, we make assumptions about things and others, but we also make a lot of assumptions about ourselves. The things we believe about ourselves that aren't true, maybe because somebody who has a vague knowledge of us has said, oh, you're like that. But we know that deep down, that isn't necessarily the case. And we often judge others by a different measure than we judge ourselves. So that self-awareness, the ability to know, I am good enough because God says I am good enough. However, I am not enough of the me that I have the potential to be. So there's still a gap between where I am and where I need to be. So even in my engagement with myself and with others, I do that with that understanding. So I'm not putting a weight on somebody else to come and complete me or to come and fill me up. Because even before I met anybody, there was that understanding that I had a ways to go. And as Ayod said, I was focusing, or I was going in a direction. So because the whole point I made about going, if I don't know what direction I'm trying to go in, who am I to put pressure on somebody else? So where, I know it gets said a lot about, oh, women should find out if the man has the vision, but values that you are pursuing. So that self-awareness to know that. So it's really, I think that self-awareness. I can improve in this area. And though this area is an area of strength, I shouldn't be so overly reliant on it that I always treat it as a crutch or an escape. That it's my go-to every time I am struggling. So self-awareness is also key.
I'd like to build on what you've said there and relate what you've said there to purpose and understanding of your own purpose. I think Genesis 2 talks a lot about kind of the Genesis 2 didn't say, that it's not good that man is alone. I will send Bay, or I will send the love of your life. The word help me, I think, is very instructive. And, for me, in meeting Ruth and in Ruth meeting me, I identified immediately that she was somebody that was going to help me in my pursuit of purpose and vice versa. And so understanding yourself, I think, to what Lanre is saying is really important, because you can't understand who you need to help you if you don't know what it is that you're trying to do and what it is that you're needing to do. And I think for me, understanding where Ruth was at and saying, oh my God, this is an amazing vision that she has. It was actually, when we had our first conversation, it was about what she was doing at the time, trying to build a vision with Magnify. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can partner with this. And her understanding in return that, oh, this is what he's about. I can partner with what he's about as well. And, that partnership is so important, but you need to understand yourself and understand who you are in order to understand who is actually best placed to partner with you on your journey to fulfill your life purpose.
Wow. I love that. Character, self-awareness, purpose. I love that. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, next question. And guys, if you've got other questions, please put them in the question box. So, next question. What would you say are the misconceptions people have about marriage, as in before they get in? Was it all you thought it would be? And have your expectations matched up with reality?
Who wants to fall on their sword first? So.
Let me take the first shots. For me, marriage has been pretty much what I expected it to be. I think I've always had a happy impression about marriage. I've never imbibed anything negative about marriage. No, so for me, there were no fears. I think the only fear I ever came across before marriage was getting married when we first started talking about it. I had to think, am I really ready to get a boy about town? So getting married would mean I would become a man. Now, consequently, after getting married is when I really realized, yes, you do actually become a man, not the impression. But it is what I thought it would be, that we'd be together, we would love each other, we'd grow together, build a family together. And we still continue to pursue the hopes and aspirations that we had as kids. That we, and God willing, we will achieve many, if not all, as we grow together.
Okay, thank you.
The interesting thing about that question is, the truth is the three men here have only been married to three women. So even in answering the question as marriage, it's the question is literally marriage to the person you're married to, because that's the only reference point we have. So that's I just want to qualify that, because when I say, oh, marriage has exceeded my expectations, it's also credit to the person that I'm married to. So marriage has exceeded my expectations, but also along the lines that even in the areas that were far more difficult than I ever anticipated they would be, I've looked on the back end of that and seen the growth. I've seen how I've been stretched. I've seen how I have been pruned and shaped and strengthened and fortified in areas that when I was that boy about 10, I didn't even think there was any problem with those things, because I was only with me doing me. Me and me were okay, But then having to make those adjustments to accommodate and satisfy another human being has actually made me a better human being myself. But also watch it's like tending to a flower. My flower has gotten more beautiful as the years have gone by. So engaging with that flower has also far exceeded my expectations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think for me, to put a generational steer on the question is to actually flip the question on its head and actually attack the notion of actually having an expectation of marriage based on what you see around you, and questioning why people do that. Because for me, I think, to kind of buttress what you've just heard, marriage is what you make of it. And every day that you are in marriage, it's a choice to love, to put the other person first. And if you're expecting anything else other than to constantly make that choice, to show agape love and sacrificial love in marriage, then your expectations in the first place were couple goals, and the notion of couple goals and what we of expectation of happy marriage on, and it's really unhealthy. It's really unhealthy to base your expectation of marriage on that. And so for me, I think it's about actually understanding that, like you've said, Uncle Larry, that each marriage is like a specific flower that you have to tend to. You don't water that marriage, it will wither. You don't put it in the sun, it will die, right? And so I think for me, I didn't have expectations, but only because of that understanding that any expectation that I have is forged by what I see around me, which might not necessarily be reflective of what I will go through. And then the other thing I will also say is that for me, I think that's been a specific challenge and a specific thing that I've wanted to kind of unlearn, because growing up, you've seen certain things in marriage, in life that might make you might color your view or distort your view as to what marriage is. And you don't want to carry those preconceptions, particularly if you use your self-awareness to understand that those might be misconstruals or things that you actually don't necessarily want to carry into into marriage. It's about actually understanding that, unlearn the things that you think are a staple of marriage, and actually allow God to guide you in how to create your own marriage. I think for me that's kind of like my learning from this. So in some ways, I don't actually like the question, but because it confers it confers an expectation as to what marriage should be from outside, when actually you make your marriage, not everyone else around you, and not the expectations of what you see around you, particularly when some of them aren't healthy.
Yeah. So from what I understand, I guess you guys must have been intentional about what kind of marriage you wanted.
Yep.
And your intention about the type of marriage you wanted. It wasn't based on what you guys saw around, which is fantastic, because a lot of people actually base their, like, was it I that said couple goals? They see somebody on Instagram, and like, yes, couple goals. I want my marriage to be like this. But I think one of our guest barristers actually said that you should stop saying that, because you don't even really know what they're like at home. It's when they come on Insta Live that
this is the thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay. Next question. There's naturally a special bond between mothers and their sons, which sometimes mean your mom can cause challenges for your wife. Have any of you experienced this, and how did you deal with it? And how have you dealt with it?
Well, me, I'm a bit of a, I'm a bit of a, I remember the first time that, the first time well, this life was with my mom. We spent a Christmas together, and she was with my mom for a prolonged period. I don't even know if both of them are watching. Maybe I should think about it carefully before I say this. But I am the archetypal mommy's boy and everything. The one who was always closest to my mom. And I remember that Christmas, and I remember. So I was in the room. The three of us were in a room, and I'm not recommending this, as I'm just being transparent. That's how I treat the question, honestly. The three of us were in a room, and I felt they kept doing this thing where they were both using me as a middleman, or as my mom was, So I just felt like I was being tugged in two directions. And I was like, look, I'm done with this. I can't do. So I said, look, what's the? So I made the decision. I'm going to annoy both of them, right? So in annoying both of them, I'm giving them a common enemy, and I literally annoyed both of them, and their first bonding session was in agreement and the anger towards me. So it was just my way of just, look, I'm removing myself from this matter. I'm not forcing you, but I'm going to create a set of circumstances. I'm going to force you guys to that. I can't believe he just did that. But yeah, he did. So I mean, but to answer the question seriously, I've always recognized that it was something that required an element of intentionality. You have to, because it's also, and a lot of times the mother-in-law gets a bad rap, because it's kind of like, it's this territorial thing that, okay, it's now my territory, but it's like, if something has been mine for 20, 30 odd years, are you expecting me to just switch off my connection to that thing just because you walked into the room? So I think there's an element of sensitivity that has to be, that both parties have to enjoy. Yeah. And the man, being the uniting party, has to be aware that there is that need to make both parties feel comfortable. So it's one, establishing so yes, there's the need to establish to the mother that there is if I'm getting the question right. I don't know if I strayed from the question, but there is a need for the man to actually establish that, but in a sensitive way, because this, I mean, and now seeing my wife as a mother as well, understanding that bond, it's unfair. It's not just hard, it's unfair to just ask somebody to just switch off just because I'm around. So but you have to be intentional about helping manage that relationship. I've seen a lot of guys who try to ignore it or act like it's not their problem, or ask them to just figure it out. But you are the common denominator. They're both, the only reason why they're actually being forced to interact is because of you. So you do have a responsibility to recognize that there is that need to break away from one relationship as you prioritize and give oxygen and life to that new one. But it's not in a just, oh no, mom, thank you, it's been real, see you later. We'll call you when the grandkids arrive kind of thing. It's not that kind of approach now.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll definitely say that what you're saying is very instructive. And I think that we're definitely earlier on in the journey of trying to kind of redefine those boundary lines and try to also ensure that there is a bringing together, because obviously this isn't just about you and wife. It's obviously about the wider family dynamic that's being created as well. And so I'll definitely say that it's a lifetime of work. It's a lifetime of kind of getting that right. And you have different inflection points. You have obviously at the outset the marriage itself. You have kids when they come into it and how that affects the relationship, and different milestones as well that kind of mean that it's important to kind of keep working at it, because those sensitivities will never go away. They'll always be there. So for me, definitely it's a learning, and actually quite instructive what you've said about how to manage it and how to kind of create a commonality between the two. I mean, you are ultimately the commonality, but actually creating more commonality. Although I probably wouldn't take your advice and make myself the common enemy. I'm not sure. I don't want that smoke. I really don't want that smoke. I'm not about that life. I'm not about that life at all.
Okay.
And I reckon that's very wise as well.
I wouldn't recommend it either. It's just...
with myself, I understand the fact that the man does need to understand the dynamic and create a smooth transition, so to speak. For me, I think my mom told me very early in life that she would never meddle in my marriage. I think it had something to do with her experiences. And so this was something she told me as maybe a 14, 15-year-old. And when I say she told me deliberately. So it was a chat we were having deliberately about life and me getting married and so on. And she said to me that she would never interfere in my marriage because she knows what it's like to have been, for her marriage to have been interfered with. And essentially encouraged me then to build my home without interference. And so I think, by and large, the relationship between there hasn't been any friction, or if there's been friction, it's gone on under a bridge that I was standing on top. So yeah, nothing spectacular or anything like that. So yeah, but like I said, she told me that then, and I understood then that there has to be it has to be smooth. You love these two people dearly, and so therefore, for them, you want there to be it's almost like a flow of love between. Yeah, just straight across, and then the only way to do that is to navigate that properly to make sure this is the case. And wherever there might be strife or anything like that, you do whatever needs to be done to quench that as best you can. Anyway,
There's an interesting follow-up question here, actually. How can a man establish respectful boundaries for his mum so that she does not sabotage her son's marriage? Interesting follow-up question to what we've been discussing. I don't know if any of my elders in the marriage game have any
Elders in the house.
The thing is that questions like that, it's often important to identify the key word there. And for most people, particularly for a wife, the key word would probably be boundaries. But the key word there is respectful. And that's the truth. That's the key word.
The key word is what?
Respectful.
Respectful.
Because it's about, you have to put more effort into actually trying to put yourself in your mother's shoes. First and foremost, because let's put it this way: in that triangle, the person who's making the biggest sacrifice is the mother. That's the truth. So in as much as she's one who needs to make the sacrifice, she's also the person who is being asked to make the biggest sacrifice. So it's easy as a wife to say, yeah, your mother shouldn't be in our business because you have no emotional stake in that argument.
Okay.
It's easier for the guy because, well, it depends on his relationship with his mother. Because if he's even if he cuts as his mother, he in his head he may think, okay, I have a ready-made substitute in my wife anyway. So the stake for him is lower. The person with the biggest stake is the mother. So, and that's not saying that that the word boundaries for me is the second most important word. Is really so even for the wife, it's actually important because as Wale said, one day, and it's something that this my wife always says. One day I'm going to be a mother-in-law, so I try to act
Yeah.
as a daughter-in-law the way I hope my daughter-in-law. So it's about having that appreciation that, okay, look, it's not she's not the bad guy. She's not Cruella de Vil in the room. She's somebody who is who's being asked to make a transition off, like, for instance, in my mind, I was the first to get married. So for the first time in her life. So by the time before the brother got married, she was a pro. She'd done it 3 times over. But for me, it was the first time. So it's a big ask to say to her, okay, now it's been real. See you later. So that respect. So there has to be, even for the wife, there has to be a desire not to even pull the husband away, but to pull closer. We always say that cliche. I'm not losing the son. I'm gaining the daughter. Prove it. Back it up with your actions so that there is that understanding. But then in terms of creating the boundaries, it's necessary. So it's about if you have a mother that's particularly sensitive, it's you sit down, you have a conversation. I mean, I think Wally was the one who said it's something that you do over time. Honestly speaking, I've been married 16.5 years. There's still layers to it. There still is something, but that's why I say the key word is respectfully, because once you recognize that, okay, look, so I need to protect my wife because she's the fresh one in the room. So she's vulnerable. She's the one on the shakiest legs. I need to protect her. But I also need to protect my mother because she's the one being asked to make the biggest sacrifice. So I'm the one who benefits either way. So it's on me to actually say, okay, you know what? What do I need to do respectfully to both of them that respects my wife's insecurity and also respects my mother's fear? And now says, okay, how do I help? Because you can only chase away, you can only quench something with, you can only put out water with fire. You can only put out insecurity by making your wife feel more secure. So that may be in situations where, okay, it may not be that I may need to engage with my mother in a particular way that sends a message to my wife that it's still us. But I may also need to communicate to my mother in a way that says, oh no, she isn't taking. So it's sometimes practical things like I may make a decision and I might ask my wife to front it, to go to my mom and say, we're doing this for you. So it's simple things like that, so you be the one. So even though I'm the one who made the decision, and if anything falls apart, I'm gonna. So it's like we do things like I always play the bad cop with my mom, but I try not to play the good cop. So whenever there's an element of good cop, I try to give it to this. You play the good cop. You play the good cop. You play the good cop because it's we really need to establish a relationship. So if we're doing something nice for you, or we want you to come over. Lisa talks to my mom more than I do. If my mom's coming to town, and for me, I play up to it. For me, I'm like, yeah, talk to this guy now. Why? Because I know my mom will forgive me anything. So for me, I can comfortably play up to that. No, I'm happy to be the bad guy. She let her be because it's just simply respecting the needs of the two women to really establish that necessary boundary. I'm not saying the boundary isn't necessary. The boundary is very, very necessary, but it's to really ensure that there's a transition from how we used to be to how we need to be without just that sharp cut. Yeah.
Thank you guys. There's a question, let me just go back, and this question apparently is for Mr. AK. Please, can you explain further about what you mean about being married making you a man? Are unmarried men not real men until they're married?
Oh, okay.
They're not.
Sorry.
They're not.
I'll try and explain that very briefly. I remember this friend of mine, funny enough, myself and Tunika were both groomsmen and brides maids at our friends' weddings.
Okay.
And I remember on the day of the wedding, that evening, I was having a chat with my friend. We were at the reception. somewhere in Ibadan. And I remember saying to him, I remember him saying, "Ah, man, the weight of this thing just hit me." And I'm like, what are you talking about? You've been married a few hours and you've been going out with her for X amount of years. What's the difference? Nothing. There's nothing different. Nothing different has happened. And I said to him, well, just like me, I mean, myself and Tanika have been together, I think, for about 5 years, maybe 6. And he said, no, Wale, it's different. He said, once you're married, it's different. Trust me. I can actually now feel the weight of what has happened. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude, And so a year later, I think, or a year and a half later, myself and Tanika got married. When I signed the papers, the registry papers, I understood. Now you are a man. And when I say, so whoever's asking the question, I'm not saying people aren't men. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that you have just put on another mantle of responsibility where you know that you must do everything within your power to not fail.
Yep.
You are responsible for another whole human being.
Yeah.
It's not a baby, but a whole human being. Now, when I say responsibility, I don't want you to think maybe let's not get into this equality business at this time. I'm saying you are responsible for that person, even with your life at this point.
Yeah.
If it calls for sacrifice for your life, you will have to give it, because that is the love that you're not signed into. Yeah. It's unconditional and it's sacrificial.
Yeah.
And that is the mantle I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yes, that's when you become a man.
A man.
Preach it, sir. Preach it.
No, absolutely. Manhood is a fact, but being a man is an option.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to.
Yep. Agreed. I think the two nights of my wedding, I had no problem sleeping until the 2 nights before my wedding, and it's because the gravity of what he just articulated.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. There's another question. A lot of women say they are not meeting great godly men. What advice can you give them?
Oof.
Okay, let me.
The first thing about that delay is that this silence is not encouraging to the ladies that are watching them. They're probably like, "Oh boy, here we go."
Let me try this. So, a great godly man. How do you identify a great godly man?
Yeah.
I think that might be your first point of call.
Yeah.
I say this because I'm not your regular church goer. So on the surface, a lot of people will think, "Who is this heathen?" But they have no idea of my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the paths I've been through as well.
Yeah.
So this is why I say, how do you identify a
godly man?
A godly man, a man that has a heart of God. And I think the only way you can do it is to engage that person on that level.
Okay.
Whoever you're going to be with, you should get to know. It's not, I know, and forgive me if I'm stepping on any toes. I know these days people run into these things. But I think you need to get to know who you're going to be with for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You've got to learn the person.
Yep.
You've got to understand the person. And in only that way can you know for real if this person, because the reason why you're getting to know the person is to begin to see what the flaws are, what the all those things, and it's with a certain amount of time these things come out.
Yeah.
They're not hidden. They will come
Yeah.
out. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you look out for it without the rose
Tinted
colored
glasses. Yeah.
tinted glasses, you will see those things come out.
Yeah.
People call them red flags these days.
Yeah.
They're very red. So look for them and take them for what they are.
Yep.
They will tell you. Time will tell you.
Yeah.
Take the time out. Don't. I mean, I understand love and the butterflies.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that. The butterflies and all that in the belly and all that. But you have to be sensible as well, because you are planning to spend the rest of your life. You know, God willing, you have 80, 100 years. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be with somebody who, for 100 years. No.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, someone just said,
yeah.
a godly man is not necessarily a man in church, but one who has a personal relationship with God. So going to church doesn't make you a godly man.
I was going to say that I was going to say, and I like being practical with the application of scripture. You know, the Bible says that by their fruits you shall know them. And you can be practical. I mean, it's scripture, and I hate to sound all spiritual and stuff, but you can be practical with that.
Yeah.
And when you see over a period of time, you know, the fruits of someone's behavior consistently, it's like you're never going to see a lemon from a pineapple tree, right? And so if you're seeing the consistent behaviors of what a godly person is, we know what the fruits of the spirit are. If you're seeing those fruits consistently being exhibited by the person that you're with, that is in itself, you know, an indicator. And I think that I'm not saying that even a righteous man can fall, right? And so I think I'm not sure what the question is getting at. Maybe where the question is saying, you know, why is it that I end up with a guy that seems quite good, but then, you know, makes a mistake or does this or does that? I think you've got to be able to distinguish between a good man that has made a mistake and a person that is ultimately a good person, right? And I think that's where the question comes about, where you see people say, well, you know, this person is by all accounts a godly person, but has done this or done that, versus this person is actually a good person or a godly person who demonstrates the fruits that that I haven't seen yet. You know, ultimately the fruits will come to the surface, I think is the point I'd say on that.
Yeah, and sorry, I think the reason why I was silent is because I was debating whether to give my answer, and I think that there also has to be a societal shift in both men and women in terms of understanding what a good and godly man, as they both said, in terms of the fruit. So I know yesterday when we were having the prep meeting, you know, I think you asked the question about romance, and I cracked this joke about what a hunter and what a hunter does. You know, as a hunter, that once a hunter, I think you asked the question, why do men stop being romantic? And I said, a hunter, after he has caught his kill, you know, relaxes to eat and enjoy his meal. And as much as that was just, there was a truth to it in the sense that traditionally, at least in my lifetime, when you talk about the role a man plays in the courtship process, it's the office or the function that's synonymous with that is the hunter. You know, you prowl, you catch, you make your kill, but then if you look at scripture, you know, there's something that Paul writes when he says the first Adam and the second Adam, the first man and the second man, the first man being Adam and the second man being Jesus. Adam's function was a gardener. Jesus referred to himself as a shepherd, and was also, you know, his day job, he was a carpenter. But if you look at that gardener and shepherd in terms of what they have in common, they're nurturing roles. So from God's perspective, the role of the man was to nurture, to protect, to provide. And you could go through scripture. I mean, I was thinking about Jacob, because they were talking about hunter versus, you know, Jacob and his brother Esau. You know, Esau was a hunter, you know. Esau was the definition of alpha manliness, you know. He was hairy, which is the definition of virility, you know. He was a sensual man, you know. He lived by his taste. And Jacob, I've heard a lot of people preach about Jacob as he was some namby-pamby mommy's boy who was staying at home. But then you look below the surface, and Jacob was the guy who rolled away a stone single-handedly, that, you know, that it takes a group of shepherds to roll, because, you know, he's felt passion. Jacob was the guy who worked 14 years for one woman.
Yeah.
Because he loved her that deeply. And even when the woman he was tricked into marrying was having male children left, right, and center, his love for the wife of his passion didn't wane. You know, he didn't switch over to Leah because, well, she's the one giving me sons. Rachel, let's be real. You know, I gave 40 years, see you later. You know, his passion for her was undimmed. But I was thinking, like, in all these, you know, if you put up their profiles on all these dating apps, you know, you probably get people swiping right. You swipe right if you want. You probably get people
Swipe right
swiping
if you
right
want.
for Esau. You probably get more swipe rights for an Esau because on the surface he has the makings there. Jacob was a shrewd businessman. He was one who was passionate about all those things. Yeah, but on the surface he looked like this, you know. But he was a nurturer because he understood that you take what you have and you grow it.
Yeah.
Another example is, you know, David and his eldest brother Eliab. You know, I mean, Eliab was so tall and handsome that even Samuel's heart skipped a beat when he saw him. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this must be the king." But David was so underqualified that his dad didn't even invite him to the thing. Eliab would have definitely got more swipe rights. Why? Because he's tall, he's handsome, he was also a soldier. So, you know, Eliab would have been one of those guys posting on Instagram in the Humvee, the Kandahar with my guys, you know, with the rifles. He's been the guy who walks in the room with the swagger and his uniform and all the ladies walk. But yet, he was one of the guys who was carrying in fear the battlefield when Goliath was threatening. He won't put that bit on Instagram, you know. And then you have David, who was so forgotten that, you know, but yet his moment of victory was he was running an errand obediently, left, but he was so responsible for what he had that he left what he had in the care of somebody else. He came, you know, and Eliab, the strong Eliab, who wasn't man enough to stand up to Goliath, could turn and try to bully his baby brother, you know, to show how much of a man he was. And, you know, even, you know, when Saul took a look at Eliab and said, that must be the king. And no, Samuel, Saul took a look at David and thought, what is this boy smoking? But what did David say? David said, oh, I killed a lion and I killed a bear. I just didn't post it on Instagram because I was doing what I'm supposed to be. I was doing my job. You won't see the post because, but that's what they're saying about the fruit. The reality is that if you actually look deeper at these characters, you will. I mean, look at Esau. Esau, the moment he found out that, oh, my parents don't like my wives, the Bible doesn't say that he went and got his house in order. He went to marry his cousin. It was like, okay, so again, a hunter mentality. Maybe my parents don't like hair. Maybe I'll hunt for rabbit. You know, maybe this time. You know, so it's truly by their fruit that you will know them. So when you look for a nurturer, how does he nurture his other relationships? How does he nurture his other responsibilities? Is he only kind to people who he wants something from? You know, how does he treat the waiter? How does he treat in Nigeria? How does he treat the driver? How does he treat human beings with respect? You know, because if you think, I mean, I don't get why a woman would be comfortable living with a man who she was the only person he treated with respect. So even if he does treat you as well, why would you want to live with a man who you're the only one? You know, so it's all those kind of things. So that's what we mean when we say by their fruit. Are you looking at, are they nurturing things? Or are they point and kill, and then on to the next, point and kill, on to the next? Because the truth of the matter is, if that's the person that you're going to be paired with for the rest of your life, that's more statistically, that's likely to be your experience.
And he's going to turn the gun at you at some point.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's true. Honestly.
No, it's true. But it's true. He'll turn the gun at you at some point.
Yeah. So is he nurturing other relationships? Is he nurturing the people? When people talk about him, what are the adjectives they use to describe him? If cool, sexy, smart is it, then you have to say that's a bit too surface for me. Let's go. I need somebody to say, you know, what Wale was saying about character, what I was saying about purpose. I need those words to start coming out. I need somebody to say he's kind. I need somebody to say he's generous. Because you're the one who's gonna live with this guy every day. You know, so what are the adjectives you want to live with? Sexy is only cool for a small portion of the day. You can't really live off it for 24 hours. You just can't.
Oh my goodness. Wow. You guys are just something else. Oh gosh. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. There's so many questions now. Let's see. Okay, this question is for Ayo. As a young man, how and where would you say young men and women are meeting and connecting in person these days, aside from dating apps?
Where did you say?
Yeah, how and where can they meet? and connect with person these days aside from dating apps? So basically, where can I meet men? When do we meet men?
I mean, look, see, the interesting thing about this question is, I mean, I met Ruth at a wakekeeping of a family. I mean, go figure, right? I met Ruth at a wakekeeping, you know, a mutual family friend,
Okay.
really sad, had died,
Okay.
and that's where I met Ruth.
Right.
And so I think for me, you know, this obsession with meeting in this space or that space, again, it's the societal imperative that, you know, we have to have met somewhere. We met, you know, at this party or on this app, you know, we met on Hinge. I don't know. Again, I have a problem with the question, because the question presupposes that, you know, that there are only specific places that you can meet. And you know, I think for me, you know, God can meet us anywhere.
Yeah.
And for me, who you marry should be a God moment, right? And so,
Love that. Love that.
and so I'm quite keen to rail against the, you know, this question, because this question is what kind of puts into people's minds that I must meet someone somewhere.
Yeah. Wow.
And see the again, and I tell people this all the time, Genesis 2, if you read 15 to 25, you know, God gave Adam a job first, he gave Adam a sense of purpose, and then he gave him boundaries and instructions. And it was only after that God then said, actually, you know what, it's not good that this guy is alone.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm going to bring him and help me. So how about we focus in life on, you know, what God has called us to do, what the instructions he has given us are, and what our calling is, before, you know, God then can worry and take care of us and say, right, okay, you know what, it's not good that this person is alone. Let me sort them out. I don't need, you don't need Hinge. You don't need me to put you like that. All of that stuff, let God then sort that. Because if you think about it, what then happened is that God then sent Adam to sleep. Adam wakes up and sees that, oh wow, there's this woman in front of me. And guess what? He woke up and he knew that she was bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. How did Adam know that? How did Adam know that? The answer to the question is that actually God will show you at the right point in time who the person is that you're supposed to be with, and you won't have to go and search. And so for me, this whole, where did I meet this person? Where did I meet that person? I mean, it's missing the point as to how God actually divinely orchestrates people meeting. Like I said, I met Ruth at a wakekeeping, right? You know, that's not where I met any of the people that I dated previously. And to clarify for anyone listening, I didn't, you know, go to wakekeeping to church. You know, I was there, you know, very, very close family friend. I was there because, you know, in the grief of that moment, I was there to support the family, right? And it's just that God orchestrated that moment in that time. And that's how God works. It's just that we've got to trust in that. And look, I'm not saying in anything that I'm saying, I'm not saying that you can't meet someone on Hinge, and I'm not saying that you can't, and, you know, I'm not saying that you can't meet somebody at a chance barbecue or party or wherever. You can meet people at any of these places, but allow God to be the orchestrator of how that happens, and let's not try to force the process ourselves. Genesis 2:15-25, literally read that. The revelation behind that is for me the blueprint for how to court and how to meet.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, is it still possible to meet a man who believes in no sex before marriage?
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure it has to be possible. There are many men out there that don't believe in sex before marriage. I know many young guys that will stick to that rule, and that's because that's what they want for themselves. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm sure there are many. Even in my time, there were some.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
And I think there's certain things we do, particularly if you're a believer, that kind of, you know, what your mindset suggests about your God is very, very interesting, because you are suggesting that there is a God who would mandate or state very clearly his position on premarital sex, and then because he hates you so much, he will not prepare any man in this world who is so like I mean, there's some things that I also hear that I just think this has got nothing to do with the man. It's really about your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because you are sitting there thinking. So it's for me, when I hear those kind of things, what I hear is that person, God is not the person driving this car for this person's journey to find a husband. Because when you trust God enough, there's some places that, you know, as going back to the Samuel, yeah, I always say that one of my favorite things about Samuel was that he was connected enough to God to say, oh, okay, God said no. Because if it was a lot of us would have anointed earlier and said, well, yeah, he looked like Saul.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
you know, and so that question for me has more to do with, do you trust your father?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
do you trust that if your father says this is what I want for you, that he will make it happen?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to try to make it happen yourself and then come back after the fact and say, why is it that none of the guys I went after were like what my father said?
It's very telling for me, and I can be frank and open here, that the one person that I decided that I was going to honor God in this specific space, and is the one person that I ended up with. I don't think I need to say any more than that on this. Is that, you know, in previous relationships where that wasn't high on our priority list. I mean, in the first kind of conversations that I had with Ruth, a few of the first things that we spoke about was this: we want to honor God in this, and that's the person that I've ended up with.
Wow.
So I think that in itself is what I need to say on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, similarly to me, I went from a position of being very sexually active to a point where I came to a conclusion that I didn't want to be that way, and the next person I was with was my wife, and there was like a 4 or 5 year window where I went from being highly sex to no sex at all to getting married.
Yeah, that's it. Because well, I don't know if she's online, but we were first, and then she decided, well, you know what, Wale, we have to stop because this is not right with God.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. Now, why I say this is because it had to be her to make me stop. Because if it was left to me, I wouldn't. But like I was saying, I think it's because of the God in it that made me agree without any opposition to what she said. And so we then ended up like that until we got married. But, you know, so yes, there's that part. And there are people that are out there that don't believe in sex before marriage. And like Io and Larry have said, focus on God. That person is who will find you, or you will find each other, as it were.
I think thinking about this more generically, it's a question of value. I'm sure many of us that have watched Think Like a Man, you know, have seen the analogy that Steve Harvey gives, where, you know, if you catch a small fish, you'll catch it, you'll pose with it, and then you'll throw it back into the water. But when you catch the big 100-pound marlin, you pose with it, you'll take it back home. When you attach more value to that thing, the lasting effects of how you interact with that thing are plain to see. And you've got to attach that same sense of value to yourself and to the other person. And I'm not just talking about this from a man's perspective, I'm talking about this from a woman's perspective as well, to provide that equality, is that you've got to understand your value and the value you place on yourself and the value you place upon the other person in order to really understand that this is something that I want to honor myself and the other person with. And that's how it becomes a long-term thing. A lot of the problems you see where you don't attach value to it, it means actually you're not attaching value to that person as well. And that's where you see this issue where sex clouds judgment and means that people don't end up in relationships and are wondering why that's the case. It's a question of value.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go back to some of the questions that were sent in before. This question is about money, financial planning. How do you guys manage money? So, do you have joint or separate accounts? Do you have wills, life insurance? Yeah. How do you guys manage money?
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tinuka is the manager,
Okay.
which is why I call her the commander in chief. Because she's a lot better at managing money than I do.
Okay.
So yes, like if you know Tinuka, you know she's I don't know what word to use there. She's an administrator
Yes.
of sorts,
Yeah.
you know. And so she runs a I don't want to say tight ship. She's organized,
She's
a lot more organized than I am,
okay.
and so she has all those things in place. We run separate accounts, but they're as good as joint accounts because we go from each other's accounts
Okay.
when necessary.
Okay. So
Yeah.
does she have
So
access to your account and you have access to her account?
yeah, whenever.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Yeah. And if I mean, I can't remember when last I looked in her account.
Okay.
But then again, I can't remember when last she looked at my account. But it's free. We have access. So yeah. So they're not joint,
Okay.
but they're open.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I think it's actually quite cool to hear and reassuring to hear that. And, particularly from a cultural perspective where we have these idealized notions that, a man should be in control. And it's funny, I had to unlearn this quite earlier on in the marriage, where one of my mentors had to sit me down and say, look, and this guy is highly successful. He said, look, my wife runs the accounts in our family because she's just better at it. And in our case, she's the organized one. Ruth is the organized one.
Okay.
I'm the slightly more chaotic one, which means that it just makes sense for her to, set the financial budget and set the planning. And so I think for me, it's also about understanding what works for you and not conforming to the societal notions of what they say. Oh, you're gonna need to have a man that's able to hold it down. Like, no, like if he's holding it down and he's holding it down to you, I'll get real broke. Then like then good for you guys. But I think for me, kind of learning that earlier on and understanding that it doesn't have to be me that kind of holds the pen. So in terms of accountability to Ruth on what I'm spending, I'm happy to do that because I know that it serves us both and serves us all as a family.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's good that we have this arrangement where we both obviously have separate accounts, but we have a joint account, and she has open access to my account, so she can hold me accountable for last quarter's spending or overspending, as it tends to be the case with me. So I think having that sense of openness and having that sense of accountability, I think, is important. And accountability doesn't make me any less of a man and any less of a leader in the home because I'm accountable. In fact, all good leaders are accountable. So
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Great. Larry.
I mean, I'll say something for the sake of saying something, but so like I personally, I don't know what to do with money. That's the truth. So it wouldn't make any sense. So Bissell is one who manages our day-to-day, short to medium term. While I'm probably more of the longer term thinker. So we kind of you focus on I say to people that if you give Bissell £900. I'll walk into a shop and buy something that's worth £100. I have to come out with 50 to 60 things that I want. So for me, I should have change. So for me, it's like it makes sense that that she might, in terms of joint accounts. I always that question. It's easy. An account is just a means to an end. The end itself is are your hearts united when it comes to your finances. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Because you can have a joint account, and it's not the account that's important. It's just there's some practicalities that maybe a joint account is better suited to, but it's not a case of, oh my gosh, our marriage is in trouble because there are couples who don't have joint accounts who have better financial, more financially healthy than couples who all their accounts are joint. So it's really about is our marriage, is our relationship with money, is it our money? Or is it my money and your money? Like, I think Dr. Enzo was talking about prenuptial agreements. So is it my money or your money? So all those kind of things, it's really your heart that's more important, because I have my wife banks with banks I don't bank with. I have the app on my phone. She has, so it's like she has, so I can pick up my phone and check her account right now, but it's not a big deal at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Now this next question is a bit presumptuous, and I'll tell you what the question is. Why do men cheat? So that's it's why do men cheat? That's assuming all men cheat, but that's not.
So that's assuming women do.
Well, that's assuming.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Can anyone of you answer that?
So I think the interesting thing about this question is that, again, it is a presumptuous question. But in all the situations that I've encountered where cheating has happened, and I caveat this by saying that this is not a reflection on the person that has been cheated on necessarily. And in all cases, the actions of the person that has cheated, they are accountable for their actions. But one thing that I've identified across all the different instances where I've seen cheating, the common thread is a vacuum, and that vacuum being filled with cheating. The resulting thing being in response to the vacuum that is there, cheating occurred. And so I think that this question is irrespective of whether a man or a woman is cheating. It might be that it's validation issues. It might be that there's a sense of loss to what has happened. It might be that there are things that are missing from that person in terms of, they don't feel that enough time has been spent, and they're not being loved in the right way, or even there's an insatiable greed, or there's a vacuum that is being filled incorrectly, of course, with cheating. And so I think for me, the question isn't necessarily about why people cheat, but actually about what is the vacuum that exists. Because I think that and when we were talking about this yesterday, that vacuum means that you are susceptible to the triggers that vacuum creates, right? And so understanding what the vacuum is and understanding what the triggers are, I think is the most important thing. Because when you talk about cheating, you're talking about the surface level thing, but when you talk about the vacuum and the triggers, you're talking about a few layers below that. And me and Ruth have actually had open conversations about this, where we've, God forbid, this should ever happen with us, but what are the things that I could do or you could do that will make you feel less loved? And I know that Ruth is a very, very much a quality time, words of affirmation person. So I know that if I take that out of the equation entirely, that's going to create a vacuum and leave open a situation whereby if from outside somebody is giving her those words of affirmation, or giving her that quality time, that is going to create a situation whereby that becomes more likely. So I think it's about addressing the vacuum and then the triggers to then, which would in case then mean you avoid the act itself, which is kind of like the surface level thing.
Fantastic, thank you.
There's also the fact that even before you say, I always say that not all infidelities are equal, in the sense that you have situations of serial adultery where it's just and even with serial adultery, there is a vacuum that is being filled, that's attempted to be filled. But because even before you even get to the physical intimacy part, there are also emotional affairs and stuff like that, where you're essentially taking what belongs to your spouse And now those ones don't get talked about as much because there wasn't that physical exchange. But that vacuum and trigger that I, as we talk about, still applies because because even if, in his example, not to call out Ruth or anything, but even if she got to the edge and pulled back, that doesn't mean that he's meeting those needs. That doesn't mean that she can rest and rely on the fact that she will still get those things from her husband. So it may just be that she may have to rely on her own dependence on God so even the fact that she doesn't go all the way to cheat doesn't necessarily mean, oh, thank God, so that we're in a good place. So it's very important, as he said, to look beyond and below the surface of the action to actually even try to understand, not, and I don't mean for the other person, I also mean for yourself, because the information about Ruth is important for Ayo, but also the information about Ayo is important for Ruth. So it's important that everybody knows. So at least we're doing our best, because it's very, very easy to assume that it's easy for me to say, well, Bismarck should know that cheating is wrong, so I should be able to expect that she would never cheat. It's more realistic to say, I know you're human. I know that you signed up for this because you wanted something from me, and I know that if I am not, I can't be trusted to give this to you. As I said, I should expect that there would be a reaction on your part. So we have to work together to actually affair-proof our marriage. It's not that it's my responsibility and it's her. No. We have to work together to say, what are the things, what are the threats, what are the things, and let's not be afraid to have those conversations.
So it's great to be able to sit down and have this conversation, like Maya said, with your spouse.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think both of you have said everything there is to say. Because if the initial question is, and of course we're assuming that every man cheats based on that question, but no, let's take that apart. What are the reasons? There could be 1,000,001 reasons, and both gentlemen have just addressed the fact that what is important is what might lead to those reasons. And that's it in a nutshell. I don't think there's
really much. It's a follow-up question. It's the same thing, but how would you, when you're actually tempted, how do you deal with that temptation?
I think that has a lot to do with discipline.
Okay.
That has a lot to do with discipline. And also knowing your own boundaries. So there's certain boundaries you have as a man. I can't speak as a woman, obviously. But as a man, you know what your boundaries are. Or you should.
You should.
You should. And if you don't, perhaps you need to learn your boundaries quickly as well, so you don't get into trouble. So it's the discipline. And I also find that, so it's not just the discipline, it's also self-respect. And when I say self-respect, I say this because, I hear, I was in a space recently, in a room on Clubhouse, and there was a discussion taking place. And they were like, how can you, so it was a woman asking another woman, how can you allow your friend to bring your husband food when you're not at home? Or when you've traveled? How can you allow your friend to be going to your home to deliver food? And it was a very insulting question to me. I'm thinking, what? I don't even care what the friend is or what her antecedents are. Don't you feel that guy has any self-respect? Are you saying that guy doesn't have any self-respect? Let's, or just discipline. Let's put that aside for a moment.
No discipline at all. Yeah.
But self-respect. That man is not going to go and do anything with his wife's friend, even if she were to be Delilah. In most cases, do you see what I mean? Most people would show her the door if that's how she was. And one is, and I doubt if many of these friends are Delilah anyway. But for those that are afraid of their friends, Yeah. Well, but seriously, for many men, they have their own self-respect, apart from the discipline. Because the suggestion is disrespectful to the man, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because you're saying that this man doesn't. In fact, he's so soft in the head that any small thing. Yeah. That's what the suggestion means to me, and that's why and I had to politely leave the conversation because I wasn't about to engage.
I think the other thing that I would say on this topic is that, again, communication is key. If Ruth knows my trigger points, my potential trigger points, and I know hers, then communicating about it means that I can actually be accountable to her for mine. So if it's a case of, this is my trigger point, I'm, susceptible to this program that we watch or something. Well, let's not watch this program.
Yep.
Or if it's that I'm susceptible to, you go into this place with these people, then where are you going? I'm going to these places with these people. Why are you going? So actually having these conversations where you for yourself, and you understand what your partner's trigger points are, you can actually hold each other accountable. So we talked about, okay, what could feasibly be a situation where this happens. You've spoken about it, then it means that when you actually get into those real life situations, you can actually say, okay, well, I thought you said that this is a specific situation that you found yourself in. Why are you in this situation? And so I think that's important as well, having that communication so you can understand each other in this temptation space.
Yeah, just to the example, so two things. The example I'm going to give is not about cheating, but it's just about the temptation men face. So I tell the story often about when one of my best friends, I don't want to go out because if I name people, one of my best friends, let's just say, was getting married, and we flew to that country to get married, and we had a terrible. So our flight ended up being like 12 hours or 13 hours late, and by the time we got into town, we'd missed the dinner party, and so there was a club thing afterwards. At least they told me there was a club thing afterwards. So we finally get to our hotel. We get into bed. We've had an awful experiences trying to get to that country, and we're getting ready for bed. And he calls and he goes, "Are you up?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "We're outside. We're going to the club." I'm like, "Okay, you know what? We flew all the way for that. We missed. It wasn't our fault. We missed the thing. Okay, babe, you stay. There's just you rest. I'll just go for the boat. I'll take this bullet for the both of us." And we go out, get in the limo. We go out, and as we get to the club, I'm walking because for me, I'm like, let's just do this. Let's get this out of the way. I just want to go home and sleep. So I walk into the club, and a very scantily dressed lady walks out. I'm like, dude, what kind of club is this that you're even bring me to that? These people. Anyway, so I walk in, and then the next one I walk into is naked. At which point it dawns on me the kind of club that is. And I turn around, and all my friends are laughing. And I would say to people that I wear that laughter with a badge of pride, because the reason why I wear the laughter with a badge of pride is because they said we knew that that's the only way we could get you to a strip club. That we had to trick you. So I wear it as a badge of honor that even my good friends, I'd established myself enough for them to know that we can only trick this guy. So anyway, we and it was, I remember going out and thinking, would I be able to find my way back to the hotel from where I am? And I ended up having such an awful time that I think after about 15 to 20 minutes, they all just said, this guy's killing our buzz. Let's just take him home. And I remember getting back to the hotel, and the first thing I did, I woke my wife up and I said, okay, I'm going to tell you what the past hour of my life has been. And a lot of people, when I tell people, some people are like, why did you have to tell her? You didn't do anything wrong. And it's to build on what Ayo is saying, that look, I need to, there was another day, for instance, that a very idle Saturday, and that's why I try to avoid idleness with all my heart. I was watching something on YouTube. I clicked on something which led to something which clicked to, and before I knew it, I was watching porn on YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh. And my wife walked in, and as soon as she walks in, I just said, babes, okay, it's confession time. Let me tell you what I just spent the past 2 hours doing. And when I tell the people, I'm like, look, the reason is precisely what I need to really establish that accountability in our relationship. That even when things, if I didn't tell you either of those two things, you wouldn't know. So, but me telling you is to actually let you know that, at least I want to be trustworthy, even if I don't always achieve it. But in terms of dealing with temptation, a man also has to have a conversation with his ego, because we can tend to go where our ego will lead sometimes. And when you're a nice guy, when you're a godly guy, when you're a successful guy, when you're all these things that all people are saying we want all these things, those things tend to be attractive. Let's call it spade a spade. And and different people, depending on where you will go to different lengths to try to experience that thing. So you have to be comfortable in a space where, if the price of avoiding temptation is to embrace an element of unpopularity, you have to be willing to embrace that unpopularity. If somebody is going to leave thinking that guy is a jerk, you have to be willing to allow them to think, because a lot of times our ego can get us into all kinds of trouble where it's kind of like, oh no, I didn't want them to think, oh no, and oh my gosh, I wish I'd killed this three stages ago. So there's a part of us that has to be willing to say, look, if you don't like me, that's tough, But it's not that I'm not a nice guy, but I'm not comfortable where that was going. So I in that moment I had to do something or behave in such a way that may have to just pour a bit of water on that fire that was kind of building, because what's at stake is too important for me to just to satisfy my ego. No, I'm good. So I think there has to be a willingness to do that as well for us guys.
Thank you so much. Okay, quick one. God, I want us to finish that too. Someone just put a question in the question box. Do you think one can forgive a cheating partner or spouse?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I look. This is the way I see it. And Lanre spoke about ego a while ago. So I think what are the things that that would cause us, or rather, what are the things that cause us offense in the case of a cheating partner? Betrayal, loss of trust, disrespect, words along these lines.
Okay.
A lot of them will fall under our ego has been bruised a lot of the time.
Yeah.
We've been hurt heart-wise as well. Yeah. Pride has been knocked as well. Who's that person compared to who I am? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, these are all points or issues that can be, raised as or reasons rather. But then you have to, in my case, and I'll speak for me.
Okay.
I would reason that first things first is I love this woman, and I love this woman with all my heart.
Yeah.
That situation or that instance is not going to be a cause for me to end the joy and peace I have within my household, or within the unit of our marriage. Yes, one will be hurt, one will, pain, so on, all the different things that come up with these things. But do I want to throw all those things? Do I want to throw away everything for the sake of this? No. I can already tell you that this is without the general going to God for help, because I imagine that the emotions, the pain, and everything one would go through in those instances will be, it would take the grace of God to really help one through that. I understand that, but I already have a starting position, which is no devil or evil situation or act is going to have free access.
Love that.
Because that's what I see it as.
Love that. Yeah.
To come and steal this from me.
Yeah.
No, I am too far invested. I'm too far invested. I am emotionally invested. Emotionally, in fact, everything. I'm totally invested. As you can put me in the whole tank of investment for that situation to rob me of that. I will fight against it. When I say I'm not being physical, by the way, you know what I mean. Yeah. So through prayer, through communication, and we will talk it through. We will cry together, or whatever it takes to get through to the other side. So no is the answer, I think.
Pastor Aki said something really, really profound, and I think it kind of informed my approach to this question. He said that he told Pastor Shola that I have forgiven you for everything that you will do to me. And, it brings me back to Ephesians 5, which, says that, that men, you should love your wives as Christ loved the church. Yeah. And many people kind of think, oh yeah, sacrificial love, that's what God is, that's what, Paul is writing. But I think for me, if I interpret that in this situation, it's basically saying that I should love him in a way whereby Christ knew that the church, his bride, wasn't perfect. He knew that even after he died for, our sins as his church, as his bride, that we would fall again, that we would make mistakes again. And yet his love is still there, right? And so for me, making the vow that I did and understanding what it is that love really is, if we're to love as Christ loved the church, then I have to believe that in that situation, God forbid I get put into that situation, but in that situation, that even if I was cheated on, that I would show that love by God's grace to be able to move beyond, the hurt and the pain that I would have felt. So I think for me, what is it that God's intention is? What is it that the model that Christ has kind of has given us? That's what we need to aspire to. And I know that obviously these things, sometimes it's about trust. It's about, being able to forgive. It's about obviously the fact that the person who has done the cheating in the first place actually is truly sorry and truly wants to change and repent, because that's important. If the person is still going to cheat even after you're forgiven, then clearly there's for me, it seems very difficult that relationship can continue. But if we want to go by the model that Christ established in his relationship with the church as his bride, then that's what we've got to aspire to. If we want to model our relationship with our spouses on Christ's relationship with the church.
I think I took the words out of my mouth, because what I was going to say was the desire to forgive is an important part of anybody's arsenal in a marriage, and exactly in the context he presented it, that he said, Pastor Agus said, it's extending the desire to forgive even before I have need. So it's like building up a bank of forgiveness, expecting that I'm going to have to use it. So it's, when you say save for a rainy day, it's a real rainy day account, because I'm going to need it. But I think and also the fact that I said not every instance of infidelity is the same. So someone who if the seller cheats because there was clear neglect on my part, I mean, come on, who am I to sit on a high horse at that point and say, well, because the act you did is more painful to me than the act that I did, So, but as I said, when you have an instance where somebody is repeatedly sending a message to you through their conduct, then that's a difficult one. But what I will say is that when we talk about forgiveness, one thing that we seem to leave out of the conversation is the need to heal on the part of the person who was actually wronged. Because I think that's why a lot of people struggle with the concept of forgiveness. Because so what am I supposed to do with the pain? My darling, you're supposed to heal. That's the answer. You're supposed to heal. So there's the forgiveness I extend to the one who has wronged me, but there's the healing, the opportunity for healing I need to extend to myself. So even if my answer is the same as this, so I'm not dancing around the answer. My answer is yes, I would. But I would also do so with a recognition, and my wife would have to understand that as well, that I need to heal.
Yeah.
And I can't guarantee it's going to take a week.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee it. So even when I'm choosing to forgive you, I'm making a withdrawal from that bank. That bank that account I opened in your name even before you've done anything. So it's just to keep it fully stocked so that on the day we need it, I can withdraw from it. But even as I'm extending that line of credit to you, I also have to recognize that I need to grieve the offense. And so there's also that bit as well. So it's not as though it's not either or. You need to, so forgiving and grief and healing. Both of them have to go hand in hand.
Thank you so much, guys. Do you know, as I was listening to you guys, I just thought, young men, if there are any young men listening, contact these guys for them to mentor you, because they're filled with so much insight, wisdom, and please just contact them. Let them, ask them to be your mentors, please.
Sorry, someone just put a comment about trusting again will be challenging. And you see, that's the point I'm making. Trust without that healing process is impossible. Forget it. It's not even going to happen. So if you're kind of like, oh, I forgive you, but I'm not actually going to attend to the wounds that your actions have caused. Oh no, trust is there's no way. So that trust is something that was built up and would have to be rebuilt.
Absolutely.
And it can't be rebuilt without that healing, because you built it up when you weren't hurting. So it's not why you're, so that's why healing is also very important.
And the other thing I would say as well is that without that healing process, that resentment can drive you to, and I've seen this, to follow up with the revenge acts of cheating, and that's where the kind of cycle becomes destructive. So that time to heal is a major key, because I've seen it play out where that time isn't afforded, and it just becomes a cycle. It becomes a cycle of betrayal.
Yeah, sorry, and just to add, the person needs to understand that this is a decision that has to be made. When you decide to forgive somebody, you decide to follow a process. It's not because it's easy. It's not because it's easily done or it's a very quick process. No, it's a position you have taken. And you will have to go through the motions that come with that decision. So yes, you forgive, but then you will have to heal, like Lanre has said. You forgive not only that person, but then you're going to have to do the forgiveness of whoever the other person was as well. Because if you keep that one, there's a whole process. You have to heal. You have to start to build, and you have to give the opportunity to the person, I think, to be able to come back and make amends. Because I imagine that the hurt would put up a wall. But you have to be vulnerable. Those are the things. It's a process, no doubt. And maybe that person, if it's a man, will have to be supplying diamonds regularly, or whatever it is, to help you, to encourage you to get to that point or whatever. You know what I mean? But yes, there's a lot.
So, that means you're saying that cheating or infidelity in the marriage does not have to be something that needs to destroy your marriage.
Nope.
I don't think so.
Thank you, guys.
As Wale said, you have the responsibility to identify the enemy, and if you decide that cheating was the enemy, then it was. But if you actually can look and say, actually, no, that wasn't the enemy, then you have to identify the right enemy and make sure you're fighting that enemy.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, gosh. Okay, let's see. Right, this question is about, I knew this was going to come up, sex. It's often said that the man's sex drive is higher than the woman's. So if she turns you down repeatedly, how do you respond? So she says, not tonight, love. I have a headache for the eighth night in a row. So how do you deal with that in your marriage?
By night 4, I have a stash of ibuprofen really waiting for her next she will not have it. But on a serious note, I think you see, one of the things, this I have a headache thing. The thing about it is that it's become such a societal no, it's this joke we throw that when a woman is not in the mood, she has a headache. That there are actually times when it's true, when there's actually a chemical or biological reason why there is difficulty, and those times, you have to have due benevolence. But when you're in that cycle, then there's a stressor. There's something.
That's causing the headache.
There's something that it's not even necessarily causing the headache, but there's something that is causing your wife to build a wall between the two of you. And the response
that headache is inverted.
Yeah, no, yeah. So, I was just clarifying so that we will piggyback so those things they're calling your attention to say, my guy, leave sex. There is something. There is something. And the route to sex is through that something.
Yeah.
So even if your motivation is to get your sex back, that's the pit stop.
Yeah.
You actually have to make. So in those moments, it's important to actually park your drive and say, look, we need to check what's up. Babe, you okay? What's up? And there's a stressor. It could be you. It could be something completely separate from you. Yeah. But it's kind of like it's a blockage to her ability to feel the readiness to connect to you in that way. And you can't just care about the end result as a husband. Using the Ephesians 5 example that Ayo said, you can't. You have to care about the entire. That scripture says washing with the word. But my favorite part is to present her to himself. So he's doing it for himself. So for me, I want my wife to be well because the best version of her is the best version for me. Yeah. So those kind of things. It's just saying, look, there's something that you need to pay attention to.
Fantastic.
Again, I'm going to be contrarian again. Why is it that it's the guy that is always knocking? I'm going to be contrarian and say that, and this is the societal, steer that we take on this, that it's always the guy kind of knocking on the door, day 8, I've got a headache. And the reason why I say this is because for me, there has to be an understanding of seasons. Sometimes it might be that it's, the woman that, doesn't want to have sex or isn't able to have sex for whatever reason. And in other cases, it might actually be that the guy is going through something as well, where, for whatever reason, it might be stress, it might be there's a reason why and these things are cyclical. And I think this thing boils down to communication. What are your sexual expectations as a guy? What are your sexual expectations as a woman? They're different. We all have different sexual appetites, right? And so, going into a relationship and understanding what your wife's sexual appetite is, understanding what yours is, in most cases, there's usually a delta. There's usually a gap. And it's about bridging that gap with a communication of, what one gives to the other to help bridge that gap in one sense and then in the other direction as well. So for me, that is about communication and understanding that actually there'll be certain seasons, where it will be a case of, the guy's going to have to, as Uncle Larry said, forget sex for a while, or in some cases even, and yes, not always, it's not always the case, but it can be sometimes the case where, for whatever reason, the guy is not in a place mentally to have sex either. So I think to just kind of like have a plaster, kind of like complete plaster where it's a case of, the guy is not the guy is constantly kind of pushing to have sex. We should be careful with that with that assumption, because again, and I know, and I'm not a doctor, but I do know this to be true, that actually different decades of a woman's life means that that biologically the hormonal kind of evolution of time means that actually maybe in 10-20 years time the woman's sexual appetite goes up, and a guy's kind of come exactly right. And so,
yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So I'm not 40 yet, but I've heard tell, right?
Yeah,
So
look forward to it. Look forward.
I'm just putting it out there, right? That again, if you're looking at marriage and you're looking at sex, not just as I want sex right now, but actually look at it as a lifetime of sexual activity by God's grace in a happy long marriage, then there's a whole life of sex to be had with your spouse, right? And to think about it in that sense. And I think that I'm saying this, just just over 2.5 years in, but I think having that kind of long-term view about your life together is quite important. If you're not having sex for a couple of weeks now, what happens when your wife is, just giving birth a couple of years down the line, and you're not able to have sex for more than just a couple of weeks? What are you going to do then, right? And health, something means that you should be able to have sex for. These are the kind of things that you've got to just think about in the long term. There's a whole lifetime of sex to be had. Like, think about it in that sense, not in the I'm not getting it right now.
Well, yeah. Look, you guys have said it all. Yeah, you've said it all. If it's continuous, if it's regular, then there's a reason. And what you as a partner, spouse, need to do is to drill down and find out what the reason is, and work towards alleviating that reason. So, and I say this both ways. So if it's a guy or the woman that has the headache regularly, find out why and try and sort out that issue. There's also, again, I talk about discipline. There's some times where you I don't care if you like swinging from bamboo trees and so on and so forth. There's some times where you have to hold it, and that's just life. You know what I mean? You hold it and you drill down and work out what's going on. Yeah, human being doesn't mean you're a rabbit. I mean, you're a human being, not a rabbit. You have the discipline to control yourself, and in certain instances, because it's for the greater good, or because it's for not just even not the greater good like that, but even for concern for your partner as to why they can't function in this area like this. What's going on? You need to find out. And if it's yourself that's not functioning, perhaps you need to communicate that to your partner, because they also need communication to find out why this is. So we both sides need to be open about what's going on, as to why this headache is continuous.
And surely, and to buttress the point, surely, if your wife is in a space where emotionally she's there, it's better sex anyway. Like, we can be about sex, but it'll be about good sex, right? And good sex means that you're both in that zen place emotionally. So for me, I think I'd rather have good sex than just functional sex.
Absolutely.
Personally, I don't know.
No, dude, you're speaking on behalf of the choir.
All men.
I'm just putting it out there, for those of us that maybe prefer the functional, let's have the good sex.
That's right.
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity.
Well, both is possible, but you don't have to choose.
The crowd are talking. They prefer the good sex too. Yeah.
Just for laughs, someone just sent me a WhatsApp message now saying that she doesn't understand about women that have headaches. I never suffer from headache, so I don't. Oh my goodness.
But
that WhatsApp message is exactly why I wanted to turn it on its head a bit and say, actually, it's not always the case that it's the woman with a headache. Sometimes it's the guy.
Oh God, this is so good. And it's 2 already. Oh gosh, should we go for another 15 minutes, guys?
I've cleared my whole schedule for this. I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, folks, I hope you guys are still sitting there and ready, because there's still a few questions. Right. Again, being presumptions. I understand men don't tell their wives everything. And then listen to this. The example that was given was that when God asked Abraham to take Isaac up to the mountain to sacrifice him, he didn't tell Sarah.
Oh boy.
I've heard this many times as well. That, but funny enough, it's not even just the example of Abraham. I think it's cultural, or maybe it found its way into the culture.
Yeah.
Where, and I'll say it in Yoruba and translate. Which is, it's not everything that a man tells a woman.
Yeah.
But the person that said that, do we know what the result is? No, is the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has got to do with your own relationship. If you have a relationship where you trust each other and your trust has been proven, then there's no reason why you would hide anything back. Because you can trust that everything you release is safe.
Yeah.
The only reason when you don't trust, or rather when you can't, is because you don't trust that your information is safe.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is that you're doing. I think it's as simple as that. You decide. You choose your position. Period.
Thank you. Yep.
I just want to add to that, if possible. Again, and I think it's so amazing how, Uncle Wale, you kind of took it away from the cultural, end of Genesis 2. Again, anybody that's kind of like in courtship or looking to kind of nail down a relationship, the end of Genesis 2 says, and together they were naked and not ashamed. And, for me, that nakedness, this is part and parcel of what comes down, is what this is about. That nakedness is so important, and that not being ashamed that if I say this thing, I'm exposing myself to the person who you're supposed to be naked and unashamed with. That's, to me, is actually what God's intention for marriage is to be, that you're supposed to have that level of intimacy whereby there shouldn't be anything that you feel you need to hold back for whatever reason. And usually when you want to hold back something, it's because of shame or because of fear of what that exposure might lead to. And so for me, that has to be the kind of target end place where that you can be naked emotionally with someone and expose them, even the things that you would usually struggle to share. That has to be kind of like your aspiration point, because that's how God intended it to be. So that's add that.
Well, okay. I think we might need a part 2 of this thing, because there's so many questions coming in. So many questions. Okay, this is taking us back to the sex question. And the person says, should we do anything sexually for our partners, even if they're not comfortable with it?
Sorry, who is not comfortable, the partner or the person?
The partner.
So what? Sorry.
So let me go again. Should we do anything sexually for our partners, even if even if we are not comfortable with it?
Oh, right. Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess going back to the truth is, good. If I come away from a sexual encounter with my wife and I'm satisfied that she's not, I don't chalk that down as good sex. I don't.
Yeah, agreed.
So for me, the definition of good sex has to be that it's enjoyable to both people.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're actually trying to build a culture of good sex, it has to accommodate both people.
Yeah.
So that's my answer. So
Look, Larry, you have this uncanny way of summarizing the answer, in my opinion, because that's it right there. If they're not comfortable, then they're not comfortable. The best you can do, if this is a line that you want to toe, is try and make them comfortable. But for some people, it's not going to happen because they're just not wired that way, and that's where compromise comes in. It might be something that you have a mind for, or whatever. But if your partner is not comfortable and you have not been able to bring down that wall, through your understanding, your whatever it might take to get there, then it's something you might have to just put aside, because that's the compromise.
Yeah.
What, like Lanre said, what you're trying to achieve is a union where both of you reach that point, both satisfied, you know, that euphoric feeling, so on and so forth, and nobody's lacking.
Okay.
If you're coming out of that if one person is coming out of that thinking, geez, did I just do that? I feel disgusting, or I'm disgusted. Sorry, it's not working.
Yeah.
That's not for both of you.
That's not. Yeah.
I think the other thing is, again, communication. Like, there shouldn't be any surprises in the bedroom, because you should be communicating. You know, if for argument's sake I wanted to pull out some left field new experience that I hadn't discussed, and you only get into it at the point where you guys are having intercourse. I mean, for me, that, you know, means that you haven't spoken about it, which, you know, you don't even know how that experience is going to go down if you haven't spoken about it.
Yeah.
And actually, on a practical level, you know, maybe speaking about it might even enhance the experience, because you've whet the appetite beforehand by saying, "Oh, babe, let's try this," right? Or let's try that. You know, and you're actually laying the groundwork for whatever it is that you want to happen. So being practical, again, this thing comes down to communication.
Absolutely.
And actually talking about things beforehand.
That's it.
Okay, great. Guys, are you guys intentional about romance?
Yeah. Well, Ayo, look at that. Over to you.
So I definitely. So I'm just reading some of the comments on the last question. So said you won't have discussed in the heat of the moment. And someone said, "Oh, hopefully don't end up in A&E." Yeah, hopefully not. So I think the romance thing, you have to continue to date your spouse. I think that, you know, again, I think going back to what Uncle Lanre said about you know, the hunter, you know, not feeling the need to hunt when they're literally sitting and feasting on their kill. You know, hunters need to hunt again, don't they? Right? And you need to kind of create that intentionality in your mind that you need to find new ways of falling in love with one another. You know, new experiences. You know, how sacrosanct is date night? You know, all of these things. You have to develop that kind of intentionality towards your spouse in order to kind of keep the romance hot.
Yeah.
So that'd be obviously I'm still new in the game. I'm still learning. You know, 10 years, 20 years down the line, I think obviously I'll need to make sure that, you know, I find new ways to do that, because obviously longer time has elapsed. So actually, you've put me on the spot first, Wale. Actually, it should be you that's answering this question.
Listen, that was deliberate. I said that because I mean, you're still fresh off the bat. You know what I mean? And
Fair
so
enough.
you would have your recent experiences, though. You know, I think it's a James Ingram song that says, "Find 100 ways." I don't know if you guys can remember that song. Find 100 ways. Anyhow, it's find 100 ways to love your woman.
Okay.
And these are the 100 ways we're talking about, which I guess is intentional. I personally, now let me answer that question myself. I don't think I'm intentional. I think it's always a part of me. Now, how regularly do I apply?
We know.
Well, there you go. Yeah. How regularly do I apply it? That's another thing. But, you know, it is still a part of my DNA.
Yeah.
To be romantic, or try romantic gestures, which at times are seen as what's this guy trying to do? You know, like
what's he trying to get?
What's he trying to get at? You know, like
what do you want now?
What do you want now? Or, you know, like, for instance, somebody might just be lying in bed asleep, and I might go out and just do a full English, totally full English, and present the full English. And, you know, it's loved and, thanks, and all that, you know, all in and all. And then there could also be the, are you trying to make me fat? It was breakfast in bed, you know, but, you know what I mean? And things like that, you know. But yeah, so I don't know how regularly, but yeah, it's still part of my DNA because I see it's necessary. And I'll say to you, 10, 20, 30, 40, don't ever stop. Don't ever stop.
Yeah.
Keep on looking for ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I'd say is one of the dangers of, you know, I know I has attacked a lot of them, the generalizations and the cliches and all that, is that it creates a reality in which you think there's an aspect of your marriage that you can be a passenger in, that, you know, you can just sit down, put on, and even in the aspect of romance. Look, the truth of the matter is that even the most romantic guy in the world would sometimes need a nudge or coaching, or sometimes for you to just come out straight up and say, look, this is what I want. This is what I want from you. So this belief that, oh no, the romance is, you know, the males, you know, the whole romantic movie setting, it was so spontaneous. I didn't expect it. I'm not saying there's no room for that, but I'm saying it's an unrealistic ask, because in a marriage, a lot of the times you might be facing the same challenges a lot of the times. So, you know, if your baby isn't sleeping, you know, unless you have a spouse who is so disconnected from reality that they can just shut off from that problem while you face it alone, which is a serious issue. Challenge is that you're going through issues together.
Yeah.
So, in as much as there may be a greater appreciation from one party for romantic gestures, it's an understanding that so there is that, and that's why that communication is absolutely critical in any area of your life. And because I'm similar to Wale in the sense that that's my nature. So imagine if you're that kind of person, it gets to a point, and even romance has to evolve, because it gets to a point where the thing that was romantic in year 2 is commonplace in year 10. But now, does that make it less romantic? No, it's just because that person has become so used to it.
Yeah.
So you're doing it thinking I'm romantic because when I did it 2 years ago, you phoned and you repaid me in a way that was mind blowing. And so I'm there, but then you're now as well as you're saying, are you trying to get me? So there's that need to say, okay, look, what do we want for our marriage?
Yeah.
In this area, in that area, in this area, in this area, in that area. I remember, I tell this story a lot that, when this and I were dating, and it's funny, she just said to me one day, you don't compliment me enough.
Okay.
And anybody who knows me knows, I always say it doesn't want that smoke. Maybe I invite smoke that I really should avoid. But I said, and for me, it was the honest way. I said to her, okay, this, I hear you, but listen, I have a question. When I say, do you want me to mean it? And, I know I've said that in the medical class, that some women have been, oh my gosh, he really wounded me. But for me, I actually thought it was a valid question. Do you want me to mean it, or do you just want, because I can flow with either. I just need to know which one you need. And she said, oh no, I really want you to mean it. And as I said, in that case, we have to have a conversation. And what was the conversation? I wasn't the biggest fan of the way she dressed. I just wasn't. So the compliments were not flowing but I'd never said to her, I don't like the way you dress, or you have to change the way. I'd never said it to her. It's just that the trade-off was she wasn't getting compliments. So, so when she said that to me, and she said, okay, I want you to. I said, well, in that case, we have to have a conversation. It's not a conversation I ever wanted us to have, but we have to have it. And we had the conversation, and the conversation left her with a choice. Do I want these compliments enough to take on board what he said, or am I more interested in my sense of independence and self to say, look, there'll be somebody else in the world who will like the way I look, even if you don't.
Yeah.
And my wife made a conscious decision she said, what do you like? I told her what I liked. And she made a conscious, and the weirdest thing I always say to me is that she actually started getting more compliments from other people than even from me. When she made the change. So it was even more beneficial to her. But so my point was that even in that, we had to have, the way we worked around it was to have an honest conversation. Now, it's not the most romantic conversation in the world, but it's a practical conversation that has reaped benefits in a romantic way. If that makes sense, because when I look at my wife walks into the room, she knows, she's, a lot of times, a regular question is, don't you get tired? That's a constant question. But I'm like, I like what I see, so
That's right.
why should I get tired? So, so it's important to recognize that, what, look, I'm the woman, so romance is something that comes to me, and it's there's no area in your marriage where you can be a passenger. There's none. Even if somebody else is the one leading the drive, you can't just say, well, I always say to my delegation and abdication are not the same thing. Even when you delegate, you still have responsibility for the outcome. So it's so you still have to say, Dave, thank you for this nice little dinner, but it would have been nice if, okay, message received. Trust me, next time, so it's you just, everybody has a part to play. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Earlier on, I think it was yesterday, someone had said this thing could take the whole weekend, and it's true. Okay, next question. How do you guys reconcile your roles, given that in this day and age, they sometimes overlap? So the example this person gave was that, women contribute equally. Women contribute financially to household expenses. Most women they're not housewives. Why is it that the most of the work, again, being presumptuous and generalizing, why is it that most of the housework, childcare, is still the woman's sole responsibility? Men need to pull their weight too.
I can't help this person. That's the truth. I just can't, because I don't recognize that reality. I actually don't. And I think this is not even a Christianity thing or a man. Even when I was a boy, that wasn't the model that I was aspiring for. We have more money because of the money she brings in. So why would it doesn't make any sense. But even from a domestic, again, domestically, you can't be a passenger just because you can't. And again, it's also about strengths and weaknesses. There are some men who that's their forte. For me, I don't have OCD, but when I do something, it has to be done in a particular way. So I sometimes joke that if my wife wants to get me to make the bed, you should make it first, because it will trigger that thing that just make nah. It has to be done. It has to be done like this. No creases. So this idea. So I guess one of the things we have to be careful of is making generalizations from our experiences. That I've experienced something doesn't necessarily mean that my dad was like this. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's dad was like that. That my mom was like that. No, it's not. That's not the case. So we must be careful not to make generalizations, because then what that breeds is that it now breeds a disdain for the people who actually prove that your rule is not actually accurate. You just disdain them because you've already made up your mind that this is how men are, and it's not. It's just so not. So I'm with I on that. I genuinely don't like that question one bit, because it takes presumption to the greatest depths. I can't even deal with it.
I think the danger with a lot of some of these questions is where you start to create expectations of what your marriage should be like, or what the dynamics of the marriage should be like, based on a lot of these cultural expectations or societal expectations. And that for me, that's really dangerous. I actually remember a conversation that I had with you, Pastor Funke, about what I want to be like as a parent. And you gave me some quite good advice. I remember you said that, look, don't kind of like tramline your experience of what kind of parent you want to be like based on what you won't do, based on what you experienced. Because what you then do is you then forget about actually what the nuances are to the child that you're raising. If you say, I'm not going to do this with that child, and actually that child needs what you said you're not going to do, then because you've literally just tunnel visioned your approach, you're not thinking about the other angles to being a parent. I think that's applicable to what we're talking about here with balancing roles and you did say that. Yeah, we had I think it was last year at some point we had a long chat, and you did say this. So for me that's applicable here as well, that don't try and kind of tunnel vision your approach to certain aspects of marriage or parenting or relationships based on your experience of what you want or experiences of others. It's so that you actually be a more 360 approach. You take a more 360 approach to this thing. So I think that's really important, so that actually when it comes to your specific situation, you're approaching it with the level-headedness and the kind of even-handedness that's required to make the best out of that situation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, whoever sent the message in, I do apologize for laughing. Wasn't laughing at your question per se. It was more about the fact that there has been presumptions there. Roles do overlap, but like I and Larry have said, it's really about the dynamics of your household. And a lot of us do the domestic stuff as well. A lot of men do domestic stuff as well. Some might not be as much as the other. Some actually more than the other. So, like they said, be mindful of making general assumptions.
Yeah.
In our household, we do the things that were more suited to from time to time. I was telling some fellas a story the other day because they were all about what is a man's role and what is a woman's role.
Okay.
And that in itself is where you begin to where you build a wall that shouldn't be built within your relationship. Like, for instance, we gave this example of who's best at managing money. If you say it's a man's role to manage money and the guy is taking you to the bush, then you've been collectively foolish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you've given the job to the wrong person.
Yeah.
So I gave them this example. I said, Tinuke is who taught me what a spirit level is and what a spirit level does. I had no clue. Till today, she's better DIY than I am. If I put up a wardrobe, whatever, I can put it up. It will stand and it will look good for a time. But as soon as it starts to receive some weight, you can be sure something's going to go wonky and so on and so forth. If I put up a picture, not all, by the way, some I get right, something on the wall, there's a very strong possibility that there'll be a bit of a lilt to one side or the other, or a listing, On the other hand, when she does, it's perfect. She's perfect at things like that. So by default, when these things come about, I put myself in the assistant role. What do you want me to hold?
Yep.
Where should I hand you the pencil? Do you see? Because that's what makes sense. She's better at that. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not meaning to be rude, but, if I make her a steak, it's near perfect. I'm not saying that her steaks are not perfect. Just mine are perhaps a bit near perfection. And that's just me and a steak.
Yeah.
But do you understand what I mean? This is different things that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the kids, there's certain things with the kids, there's certain exercises with the kids or things that, even speaking to the kids, communication with the kids, there's certain things that I would just leave to her because she's better at it or at that or with that particular kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it might. So yes, I think in many cases, these roles they cross, and many men are involved, not only in the finances but also in the domestics in the home.
Yeah.
And so my advice to whoever's asked the question is this: if this is not the case within your household, perhaps you need to find a way to communicate to your partner.
Yeah.
To try and incorporate this into your general day-to-day activities where both of you end up doing things together, and don't shoehorn his role, my role, too strictly. Because when you do that is when you find out, but he's not helping me in this, or he's not big, and that's probably because he thinks, in his understanding, maybe the way it was brought up as well, that, oh no, that's the role of a woman. I don't do those things. But with communication, understanding, so on and so forth, you can make the man understand this. And I say this to say that I was not always as domesticated as I am now. Even though I never had the premise of this is the role of a woman or this is the role of a man. But I just wasn't as hands-on. But over the years, I learned through communication with my wife and understanding her needs. That, okay, if you do this, it helps me. If you do this, it helps me. So that is also a thing. So you as a spouse, I don't know, it might have been a man or a woman that asked the question. Anyway, you as a spouse have that responsibility as well to be able to communicate those things to your life partner. Because you don't want to go through life with disdain and what are the other words that we mentioned? That's ideal.
And I think, sorry, on that topic of conversation, there's also a different, I mean, approach is very, very critical, because one of the things I think we find hardest to do in marriage is actually to be vulnerable enough to be honest. And what I mean by that is, you know, as a friend was complaining about her husband to me once, and she was like, he was texting and driving. And, you know, she told him how it was dangerous, how it was legally wrong, how this all facts that he knew. So when we broke that, I actually asked her, so what were you actually feeling in that moment? That I was afraid. So I said, but did you say that to him? And she goes, no. And I get a lot of times we're like that. The thing that is really at the root of our fear and insecurity is the thing that we leave out. So it's not going to man and say, you don't do this, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling. You know, I'm really struggling to do this and that and that and that. And I know you're not used to doing it. I know it might be a bit challenging. I don't need A+ contribution from you. I was settled for C-. You know, so it's just I just need you because I'm honestly just struggling. So that's different from an accusatory attack or assault on the person. So even when you're communicating it as well, you know, it's often more effective and better to actually just be honest and say the challenge I'm having is I'm afraid that I'm going to fall apart.
Good one. Okay, final question. Because I think we're going over too long. We might have part 2 soon. Okay, we talk of sexual harassment and so on going on. What would you say to your sons at the right age, how to behave towards girls, ladies, otherwise, or others rather, sorry. Or what would you say to your daughters on how to behave?
Well, again, for me, I think that the thing that my mind zeroes on is that point at the right age. What's the right age? You know, so am I going to be indifferent about my son's attitude to women when he's 2.5, when he's 3, and then at 15 I sit him down and say, okay, by the way, let's have the talk. You know, I can't. So I can't expect I can't frame my expectation of my son's behavior with women in the context of sex or marriage or sexuality or sensuality. No, because my hope is that he will engage at an adult age, he'll engage in sex with one woman, which means that the majority of his relationship with other women will be non-sexual. So I can't let sexual harassment or sexuality be the frame of reference. It's really about helping him, you know, a lot of what I said about Genesis 2. It's really a Genesis 1 and 2 mindset. That look, this is God's mind. This is your function or your design. This is their design. And it's really helping him and helping her have that appreciation before we start bringing another, as I said, I can't even add to it, before we even bring another human being into the mix. Let me help you understand you let me understand well, I don't want to know whether O is the right word, but the function you play in the world.
Okay.
And what the function the world plays in your life, and help you understand, so that naturally all those kind of things will hopefully fall outside those boundary lines. So you already know that that's not on, that's not happening. So I don't want you to only respect women when there's sex. No. Respect women, period. Now, when you are now sexual, it's now okay. You know that thing Daddy has always said about respect women? It also applies to sex. You know that thing Daddy has always said about it also applies, so that as you are being further and further exposed to new experiences, that value system that we have developed from day one, because you do actually start, because intentionally or accidentally, you actually do start introducing your child to values from day one. You know, so it's now, you know, okay, a new experience. Okay, it's time for us to review and revisit our value system again. This is how that applies, but you don't frame it the way the question was framed. You teach the value, and then hopefully, if your child can't get it by themselves, you now help expand their understanding of that value as it relates to this. So I would hope my son, the primary woman in his life is his mother. So the first woman he has to learn to value and respect is his mother. You know, so then, you know, if he has a sister, he has cousins, he have female friends. So before he's even got into any romantic engagements, I would hope, and it's my plan and my desire, to help him understand the value of woman. And then as we broaden it, then and also flip side with a girl, to help her understand her value and her worth. Because, you know, I use you know, you can use a luxury item, maybe an LV bag or a car. I can go into a Maserati showroom, right? And I can ask them the price, and I can say, I want to pay 30K. And the guy will say to me, that's nice, but that's not the price. And it doesn't matter how much I say I want to pay. The price isn't going to be affected, because guess what they know? There's somebody who can afford it. So, and since it's not you, and you keep stepping, you know, so, and it's that value system that, look, the fact, if somebody wants to price you down, they're free to try to, but you are the one that says, oh no, I know that I'm affordable to somebody. I'm not designed to be affordable to everybody. But I know I'm affordable to somebody, so I don't need to lower I'm not on sale. I don't need to lower my standards. So, but that's not a lesson I'd want to teach her only when she gets to 13 or when she starts getting breasts and hips. No, it's, you know, from when she's a little girl, to help her understand this is your value, and don't let anybody else try to set it.
You know, that analogy that you gave reminded me of a quote by Marvin Sapp that said something about if you feel you're being undervalued, that maybe it's because you put yourself on the sale rack. That maybe you need to get off the sale rack and go into the show glass or something where things of values are kept.
I agree.
No, I mean, I love what you've said, Uncle Larry. I think the reality is that it's about establishing those first principles. You know, and again, if you're in a situation whereby you're having to, you know, teach your kids about values from their adolescent ages, then, you know, a lot of what their idea of the world has been established already. You know, it's been established in those formative years. They've got it from school. And so if you're interacting with them at the age of 13, 14, the chances are there's going to be a lot of unlearning that needs to happen in that period. You know, for me, my attitude growing up, and I don't have kids yet, but my attitude towards women, towards how I see them, has been, you know, based on what I was taught growing up, you know, to always treat women with respect, you know, and in fact, actually to love God and then love others as I love myself. And that is kind of like the first principal point that I used to apply to any situation, any relationship that I'm in. And if I get that first principle right, then as Uncle Lanre said, you can kind of overlay the different dynamic and interactions that kind of inform your journey in interacting with the opposite sex before marriage and even post marriage. And so I think that, you know, just that the concentration on those basic principles, and that basic principle of love God, love others, and then building on that is so important. So literally, what Uncle Larry said there is just a key, major key.
Absolutely. But first point of call is raise well-rounded human beings. So before I'm actually even telling the boys about their relationship with women,
Yeah.
it's first of all about being a decent human being, being kind, being considerate, you know, thoughtful, and we teach these things to all our kids, and to the boys specifically, with regards to abuse, like you've mentioned. It's something they've been brought up with, and I guess it's a good thing also that they have sisters, and the sisters were always younger.
Okay.
So if there was a chance to abuse, they would have. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that, I guess, has always helped. I I learned very early, perhaps because I grew up with women, and I grew up with women, and I was the youngest for very, very many years.
Okay.
So I think I was taught how to exist with women from baby, you know, and so the things that I grew up with or grew up as, I think, have naturally been passed down to my sons as well.
Okay.
But more importantly, it is, like I said, is just to raise a well-rounded human being, so that they understand, like you guys both talked about the values that you would set in place, through from when they're young and all that. And this is what we do for the girls, for the boys. These are the characteristics that make you a well-rounded human being.
Absolutely.
And that will guide you along the path to what you do to others and what you allow others to do to you. Consequently, that's it.
Wow, thank you guys. I think let's stop here now. I know the other questions, but I think we should stop here now so that we're able to answer other questions. But final thing, what would you say to our listeners based on all the questions? Just one final word regards anything. Just each person could pick anything that they want. Just a final thing.
I think for me, it's you're worth it. Whether you're single, whether you're married, if you're single, you're worth that guy that is even beyond your wildest imaginations. If you're the one who is afraid that there's no guy, you're worth the guy who will be celibate for you. You're worth the guy who will treat you with respect. But even in marriage, you're actually worth having a husband who will fight for you, who will live for you, who will, if necessary, die for you. So for me, it's that foundational value of worth and value, and that foundational thing of worth and value is very, very instructive in how we are, what, as Wale said, what we do to others and what we allow others to do to us. So you are worth being treated the way God will have you be treated.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ayo?
I think for me, again, without being overly spiritual about this, it's actually about just putting God first and putting him at the center, because a lot of these things that we're discussing, we've kind of given practical advice, we've given, the practical tips, but we also need God's help with this. Like, I can't be the husband that I need to be to Ruth without God's help. He created her, he knows her. I can't be the good person that, is looking to court someone and make her a married woman without God's help and God's direction on who that person is, talk less of how I do it. I can't forgive without God. I can't, lead without God. I can't manage finances without God. I can't forgive without God. I can't do any of these things without God. And so I think focus on him will enhance our ability to be better spouses, to be better men, to be better people, as we've spoken about. So focus on him, and he helps us to do all of these things that we're discussing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Uncle Wale?
I'd say learn to normalize not letting stereotypes or other people's bad experiences determine your experience.
Good one.
be ready to unlearn, as Ayo says.
Yeah.
That I love that phrase, to unlearn.
Yeah.
Unlearn some of the things that you were told or you've seen.
Yeah.
And look for an alternative that works for you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. You know, guys, someone said earlier on that this is a good week conference. And if you had to pay for this, you guys would pay a lot of money. And these guys, they've given, I mean, this is almost 3 hours now. Guys, thank you so much. I mean, of course, if anybody wants to pay for it, you can send your, just send your DM.
I'll send my bank account details. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But this, no, seriously, this has been
Or
fun.
there I say wise friends who want to bring food.
Say that again.
I said, or dare I say wise friends. I said, dare I say wise friends who want to bring food. That they can bring the food.
True. So, no, this has really been absolutely amazing. You guys have been vulnerable. You know, you've given us wise counsel. I mean, okay, speaking from your own experiences, not speaking for all men, but the truth is that a lot of what you said is, I believe, is true. And especially that bit about not generalizing and making assumptions, and you know, God bless you guys. But please, can I ask for a favor? One thing. You guys will come back again. Please. Please.
Sure.
Whenever you want.
Whenever
you want,
yeah.
Pastor Funke.
Thank you. Yes, we want food.
Thank you.
Shadi, please send us some food. If you send us some food, we'll have part two. Means I want food. Thank you. It's been really good. It's been really, really good. Really good. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
See you guys again soon. Please show them more
All
love.
right.
Take care.
Show them more love so that you can come back again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Actually, I also need to say thank you to your wives. So to Ruth, to Tinuke, and to Abisola. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Oh, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Bye. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.